Hey, what's up everybody? In this video tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at how to create a jelly donut. This is going to go along with our candy project unit. Just a great way to kind of get in there and start working with things like revolve and so on. And we can see that there's a couple different processes we can use and use revolve on in order to get the product that we're looking for. So first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be going out into our LTHSP LTW project. And we need to create a new folder called Candy Project. So let's go ahead and do that. Once we create that new folder, let's go ahead and double click on the Candy Project folder. And now we have a new design up. Let's go ahead and do a save. And we're going to be calling this one Jelly Donut. Okay, once we have done that, we can go ahead and collapse our data panel. And now we can go ahead and create a sketch. So once we pick on Create Sketch, let's go ahead and pick on this work plane here. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be tracking off of the origin, all right? And I'm going to be drawing my circle out here, and this circle needs to have a diameter of 1.5. I need to make sure that this is going to be aligned horizontally to the origin. So I'm going to come up here into my sketching constraints. I'm going to be picking on the horizontal vertical constraint. I'm going to pick on the origin, then pick on the center point. Okay, we're going to say okay, and now we can see that this is going to be horizontally constrained. All right, so now what I'm going to do is add a dimension from the origin to the center point, okay, and that needs to have a dimension of 1.5. All right, since we're talking about a jelly-filled donut, I'm now going to create a circle, use this as my center point, and this new circle needs to have a diameter of 0.75. I can now go ahead and finish the sketch. I can come over here, turn my origin on, and now I can use revolve, and I'm going to be selecting this profile, and then selecting this as my axis, and it's going to send that around to create the donut. Now the issue is our donut is silver. It's almost looking like it's a piece of like metal. All right, we don't want it to look like that for a donut. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to kind of trick Fusion into getting this to look the way that we want. All right, so coming out here to the top level, finding our jelly donut, I'm going to right click, go down to Appearance. And once I get down into my appearances, I'm now going to be coming out and finding, believe it or not, concrete. I'm going to be dragging and dropping concrete on top of this. And then now we can see that it's giving it that texture that we're kind of looking for. But the issue is that the color is wrong. So I'm going to be right clicking on concrete, going into Edit, going into Advanced. And then once I get in here, I'm going to be using my scroll bar, pulling this over to the right. I'm going to be seeing this one small little box here. And that's when I can come in and pick on color. So once I pick on color, I can now come out here and I can start finding the color of the donut that I sort of want, okay, with this. You might have to go into browns and sort of lighten this up and so on, okay? All right, but we can come out and get the color that we're looking for. And it looks like we might have something about right here. All right, I think that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and say okay. All right, and now we can go ahead and close. So it's that sort of color that we're looking for. It's the texture that we're looking for, and we have a hollowed donut. So now what I need to do is actually go in and put the jelly into that. So what we're going to do is come up here, create a sketch. I'm going to be picking on this work plane. Once I picked on that work plane, I'm now going to come over here and pick on the box next to slice. I can use circle. I can track off of the origin. And I can go ahead and draw this out here. This is going to have a diameter of 0.75. Okay, I'm also going to be making sure that that's locked in horizontally to the origin. And the last thing I'm going to do is make sure it's in the right position by adding a dimension in here of 1.5. All right, so that's done. I'm going to finish the sketch. I'm now going to go ahead and use revolve. Okay, that's my axis. It's going to send that all the way around. But in our case, our operation is not going to be a join. It's going to be a new body. And now I'm going to go ahead and say okay. Okay, so once we do that, we can see that we have two bodies that have been created, okay, from these two revolutions. So body number one was the donut, okay, and body number two, as we can see, is that jelly center. So coming here to body one, I need to make sure to turn the visibility off on it. And now what I'm looking at is body two. So I'm going to right click on body two. I'm going to go to appearance. I'm now going to come down here and go into my glass folder, go into color density, and find my glass heavy color blue. Now, if there is an arrow next to it, we have to hit the arrow first in order to download it. Once it's downloaded, then we need to drag and drop that on top of that body. All right, so the the jelly center I see in a lot of donuts is not going to be blue. It's going to be red. So I'm going to come here to this new material, this new appearance I've used. I'm going to right click and say edit. And that's when I can use my scroll bar, take this over to my reds family, and then come up here and pick on the swatch color that I want and say done. And now I can go ahead and close out. So I'm going to go ahead and turn back on body 1. So we have body 1 and 2. And now's the time when we need to come out and create the actual icing that goes on top of the donut. So in order to do that, we're going to come up here. We're going to use offset plane. I'm going to be picking on this work plane and then dragging this up to that work plane, all right, is on top of the donut. I'm going to go ahead and say okay. So just taking a look at what we've just done, we can see that that new work plane is hovering over the top of the donut. So I'm going to come here to my home view, and now is when I can create a sketch and pick on that new work plane. So icing that we see on donuts is not going to be a perfect shape like a circle. Instead, what it's going to be is a sort of irregular sort of curve that's going to be happening for the outline of the icing. So in order to do that, we're going to come up here and use spline. And now starting here from the top, I'm going to go ahead and just use spline. And when I'm doing this, I'm wanting to make sure to stay within that sort of perimeter of the donut on the outside. I'm not going to go over the edge. And I'm just going to go ahead and put in that sort of irregular sort of outline on the outside. Then I'm going to do the same thing for the inside. Okay, I'm going to make that sort of edge. Once again, I'm staying within the perimeter of the actual donut. And now I'm going to go ahead and finish the sketch and look at this in a home view. All right, so that is done. Okay, we can see that the outline for this icing is way above the object. So what I'm going to do is say extrude. I'm going to pick on this profile. And now, instead of my extent type being distance, I'm going to come here and pick on to object. And all I have to do is pick on the actual donut. The operation that you need to use on this is going to be new body. And now we can go ahead and say, okay. Okay. All right. So I know that this looks a little bit funny at this point, but trust me, it's all going to work out just the way that we want. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come in here, okay, create a sketch, and I'm going to be picking on this work plane, okay? And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and slice this, and now I can come up here and draw a circle. So once again, I'm going to track off the origin. I'm going to come out here, and I'm going to just put in a diameter here of like 1.6. Okay, and what I'm going to do is make sure that this thing is horizontally aligned. And now I'm going to add a dimension from the origin, okay, to that center point and make sure that that is 1.5. Okay, so once that's done, here's what we have to do. I'm going to be coming into rectangle, finding my center rectangle, starting this from the center point of that circle, and I'm going to be making sure that that rectangle goes above, okay, this part here on top of the donut, but I'm also wanting it to stay, okay, within the confines of this actual axis right here. Okay, so I'm looking for something that's going to be looking like that. All I have to do now is draw a line from the midpoint to the midpoint. Okay, I can finish up with the sketch, look at this in a home view, and now I can use revolve. And the revolve profile I'm looking for is this. And now I can pick on select, and now I can just simply pick on that axis, and we can see it's going to revolve that profile around, and it's going to delete whatever it's basically hitting. All right, so it's a cut operation. I'm going to say okay, and then this is what it's going to be leaving us with. All right, so there's some materials that, some appearances that we have to put on this. All right, so I'm going to come here to body 3. I'm going to come to appearance. Okay, I'm going to come down here into my paint, go into glossy. I'm going to be finding red. Once again, if the arrow is sitting here, we can go ahead and hit the arrow. Now we can drag and drop that on top of that body. All right, and it's going to sort of give it that sort of icing that we're looking for. All right, the last thing we're going to be doing here is coming into fillet. I can come here to this edge and then come here to this edge. And maybe we can just take a look here. Let's go with like a 0.03 sort of fillet. We can see it's rounding. We can go a little bit more than that. Let's go with 0.05. Let's see if it's going to work. Cool. Let's go with 0.06. It's going to round it a little bit more. Let's just go on all the way out to 0.1. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, and we can see it's rounding those over perfect with the fillet. If 0.1 is not working, then you can go ahead and back it down, start going with smaller sort of numbers. Okay, and let's go ahead and say okay. All right, so the jelly donut is done. It is modeled. We can see there are 3 different bodies. All right, so I can turn off body number 3. That's the icing. Okay, body number 1 was the donut, and then there's our jelly filling. So I'm going to turn those all back on. And now what we're going to do is we're going to actually come out here and take a bite out of the donut so we can see what's going on the inside of it. All right, so in order to do that, I'm going to create a sketch, pick on this bottom work plane. Okay, I can use slice at this point. And now what I can do is use spline. And with spline, I can come in here and I can take a bite, sort of this irregular sort of curve, join this all back together, and now go ahead and finish the sketch and look at this in a home view. Now we can use extrude, and I can pull this up. All right, but the thing is I want this to go in both directions, so I'm going to change my direction from one side to symmetrical. It's going to go all the way through it. Now we can say okay. We can turn off the origin. All right, and there we go. Okay, we have ourselves a jelly filled donut, okay, that we've just created in Fusion. Last thing to sort of wrap this up is go ahead and do a save and okay, and we're ready to go. So there you go. There's your jelly donut. That's the first little activity you have with our candy project unit. Good luck.